So, which five NFL coaches find themselves on the hot seat going into the 2022 season? What kind of records do teams that face each other the most have against each other? And what kind of penalties should the NFL impose on a certain quarterback? Well, we're going to try to answer those questions and many more as we present a very star-spangled edition of Fantasy Football Fever starting right now.
USA.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going? It's Tim McClellan here with another edition of Fantasy Football Fever. It is Sunday, July 3rd, 2022, one day before the 4th of July. I hope everyone out there has a very safe, insane 4th of July holiday tomorrow. And I'm joined by a couple of All-American guys right here. I got the main brain of sports, John Flynn, the host of Hooked on Sports. How you doing, buddy?
How are we, Tim? What's going on? Happy 4th Eve.
Yes, and happy 4th Eve to you, sir. And, of course, we have our league commissioner, the one and only John Natali. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. Good to be back.
Yeah, great to be back here. It's been a while since we've done one of these shows, but we got some stuff planned for you tonight. So I'm just going to say let's get into it right now without further ado. But first of all, I do want to wish our technical director, Irene Namer, get well soon. She's been having health problems here recently, but she's staying strong and she's keeping her head up. Irene, we love you out there. Mwah. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and go into our big hot topic for tonight. There are some NFL head coaches who will be pretty much put on the proverbial hot seat going into this season. Pretty much it's going to be make or break for some of these coaches here, and looks like we have a list of some of the coaches that are going to be feeling a little bit of the pressure. So, Flynn, what do you got here? We got some coaches that are definitely going to be on the hot seat, so they have to either make it or break it this year.
Yeah. So last season there were during this offseason there have been 9 head coaching change. 10 head coaching changes, and like several of them were fired. Before the season, so you have to figure that there's going to be at least 5 or 6 head coaching changes of the next coaching carousel in 6 months from now. So, but I think for a lot of inner circles, I think the number one name that's on people's lists is Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, it is no secret that Jerry Jones is thinking of trying to lure Sean Payton out of retirement and be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Remember, Sean Payton was the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys for 3 years before becoming the head coach of the New Orleans Saints in 2006. So Mike McCarthy. So with the roster that he's had the last couple of years, certainly not the number one roster in the NFL, but certainly it's one that wins a lot of games. So they were the only team, only home team to lose a game on Wild Card Weekend at home last season. So the last 2 seasons have not been a success for Mike McCarthy at all. When you think about maximizing the playoff abilities of Dak Prescott and Tony Pollard, Zeke Elliott, and others, and now because the Cowboys have the salary cap crunches and surely enough when they had to let Amari Cooper go. They let Cedric Wilson go. They couldn't bring back Randy Gregory. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Mike McCarthy this year. And you also have to factor in that the Philadelphia Eagles have vastly improved with the trade of A.J. Brown and the drafting of Jordan Davis and the excitement surrounding the Eagles' offense this year. The Eagles are going to be a true contender, and they're not going to be as easy of an opponent for the Cowboys as they were last season. But where both times the Cowboys won by over 20 points against Philadelphia. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys this year, and this is probably the Cowboys' weakest roster they've had in about 8 or 9 years. So can Mike McCarthy do the Yeoman's work and maximize the potential with this Dallas Cowboys team, Tim?
It's going to be interesting to see because I know in that playoff game last year, I mean, the one thing that has really killed the Cowboys, in my opinion, over the last couple of years has been poor time management and poor play calling. I mean, those last 14 seconds at that game against the Niners, I mean, of course, all the Cowboys fans would love to have those 14 seconds back. I mean, like I said, 14 seconds, Dak could have just run a quick slant, either a quick pass to either Amari Cooper or to Michael Gallup, or probably one of their best receivers they had last year, Dalton Schultz. But he decided to run it out, but they didn't have any timeouts left. Couldn't get back to the line of scrimmage in time, and the clock struck midnight for the Cowboys on that day. So, Natalie, your thoughts on McCarthy?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. Let me see what the article I have here says.
Yeah,
it says, Mike McCarthy would be an easy scapegoat for the Dallas Cowboys' failures. No team will view its head coach as the scapegoat more than Mike McCarthy, should the Dallas Cowboys fail. One would think they should be used to failing. They have failed all the time since Jerry Jones could not make things work. Long time with his former Arkansas teammate Jimmy Johnson. The shame in it all is Dallas has been more good than bad, but rarely been great. To be frank, McCarthy has the narrowest pathway to walk in order to keep his job. Dallas not only needs to win the division and make the NFC playoffs, but anything short of a conference championship appearance may not cut it for America's team. With two quality coordinators in-house in Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn, Dallas will have no problem pointing the finger at McCarthy. It might not be all McCarthy's fault, but the pressure that comes with coaching in Dallas is absurd. That's basically the article I have is.
Yeah, and I think what that article is hinting that anything short of championship Sundays it won't be a success in the eyes of Jerry Jones. And if I'm being honest, I think the Cowboys are at best the fifth best team in the NFC, fifth or sixth best team, fourth, fifth or sixth best team in the NFC. Now, I still think with all the additions the Eagles have made the last couple of years to their roster, I still think Dallas is going to win the division because I still think Dak is far and away the best quarterback in the NFC East. Better than Jalen Hurts because Hurts needs to prove himself. No excuses now with the duo of Bama wideout former Bama wideouts in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and of course with Miles Sanders taking the carries in there with that offensive line as well. But if you have a quarterback, you're going to be in good shape, and that's where the Dallas Cowboys are now. But you think of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you think of the LA Rams, their ability to lure Aaron Donald back on a historic contract. The Green Bay Packers, even though they got weaker at the wide receiver position, they still have Aaron Rodgers. So if you're the Dallas Cowboys and if you're Mike McCarthy, that anything, I would say anything short of winning the playoff game, the season's not considered a success. And and given the Cowboys the potential division that and the potential strength of the other teams in the NFC, the Cowboys are going to have to go on the road at some point if they want to get to Championship Sunday. And by the way, the Cowboys have not won a true road playoff game since the 1992 NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers, and that's the only such playoff win in the last 43 years for the Dallas Cowboys. Only one playoff win since the regular season expanded to 16 games, and that was the 92 NFC title game at Candlestick Park against the 49ers. I originally liked the Mike McCarthy hire. That I thought McCarthy, with the experience and his ability to get the most out of his players, despite bad drafts by Ted Thompson. Now he has to deal with the Cowboys' inability to manage the salary cap again, something the Cowboys perennially fail to do, and since the salary cap kicked in 30 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I say anything short of an NFC championship. I mean, at least get to the championship game.
Yeah.
And that could be a step up, NFC championship win. That would be a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But we just gotta wait to see on that. I noticed another name that Flynn was quickly talking about here. That would be Matt Rule.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a bingo card 3 years ago when the Panthers eventually hired Matt Rule, I would not have had on my bingo card Matt Rule potentially being on the hot seat after 3 years because the Carolina Panthers made some bold moves with the new ownership with David Tepper, bringing in Matt Rule on a 7-year contract to be the head coach. Now, it is rare these days for coaches to get contracts of that length, but that was the type of thing the Panthers were trying to get about because Matt Rule had an incredible track record of building great cultures. We saw that in Temple. We saw that at Baylor, and David Tepper saw that, and they figured a college coach going into the NFL. But it is rare these days for college coaches to succeed in the NFL because the leap from college to the NFL is probably the hardest, and Matt Rule. But I don't think it's necessarily Matt Rule's fault that he's in this position because the quarterbacks he hasn't landed a franchise quarterback yet. The Panthers they might have an answer in Matt Corral, who they drafted in the 3rd round in the draft, but going from Teddy Bridgewater, who is athletically gifted, but he's just a guy. Then Sam Darnold was a train wreck last year. He couldn't stay healthy. So and then Christian McCaffrey, of course, after an historic run in 2018 and 2019, hasn't stayed healthy the last 2 years. So not everything is his fault, but look what the Panthers do have. That they do have an excellent defense, and they played much of the season without their touted first round pick J.C. Horn, the corner out of South Carolina, who tore his ACL in Week 3 in that Thursday night game against the Texans in prime time. So the Panthers are going to field out an excellent defense, and I think Phil Snow has done a really nice job working out that defense and getting them to play on an NFL level. Also, remember another thing too with that defense. Remember, the Panthers drafted 7 players in the 2020 draft. The first one with Matt Rule. All 7 players were defensive players, and I said at the time there was going to be some point where the Panthers defense was going to make amazing strides, and the Panthers did make a lot of those last year, but now the Panthers are going to have to. We'll have no idea who the Panthers are going to choose as their quarterback in Week 1. It could be a lot of different names. I personally would go with Matt Carroll because you want to give the young guy a chance, but the Panthers certainly are not sold on the idea of Baker Mayfield going to Carolina. I've seen rumors that if the San Francisco 49ers trade Jimmy Garoppolo, that the Jimmy Garoppolo would a potential landing spot would be Carolina, and I think if the Panthers are concerned about Matt Rule's job security, I think the Panthers would have made a trade in the off season to bring Garoppolo over from San Francisco to Carolina. So there's certainly a lot to put out there, but if McCaffrey stays healthy, if the offensive line, which I do think is improved, that the Panthers did make some good strides. It's bringing in guys in free agency, drafting Ikemi Kwonu with the 6th overall pick, and when they could have had someone like Malik Willis, who I thought was the pick at 6, but I'm not going to blame Carolina for drafting who they felt was the best tackle in the draft. I personally had Evan Neal over Ikwonu in the draft process, but I digress. I think this fair or not fair. If the Panthers don't improve, that it's probably going to warrant a coaching change. And Matt Rule would be on the hot seat this season. So, but also another thing too of a case against Matt Rule. So this is going to be the 3rd year in which the NFL playoffs expanded to 14 teams, where one team in each conference gets a bye, and then the next 6 best teams play in the wild card round. So that the only team that has A, kept its coach, and B, not made the playoffs in that span is the Carolina Panthers. So which tells you not only how much turnover there is in the NFL, but also the type of the type of barrenness the Panthers have had at the quarterback position since Cam Newton won the MVP in 2015.
Wow. It seems like there's going to be a lot on Matt Rule's plate for this year, trying to get back to taking charge of the NFC South there. Well, Natalie, you got anything about Matt Rule?
Yeah, this article I have has him on there too, so I'm going to read what they have. It says, it may already be somewhat of a foregone conclusion that Matt Rule will be coaching in his final year with the Carolina Panthers. A 3rd straight season of 5-win football will almost certainly force newish owner David Tepper's hand and look for somebody else to coach his NFC South football team. Rule would be unemployed for a day before resurfacing with a Power 5 job. It's hard to gauge what reasonable expectations are for the Panthers this season for Rule to keep his job. They are not making the playoffs, especially with Sam Darnold and rookie Matt Carroll as their 2 quarterbacks of note. Maybe something along the lines of 7 wins or pushing towards 500 gets them to a 4th season. Either way, it is hard to remain optimistic in Charlotte. If there was ever a time for the 2 parties to agree to mutually part ways, this is it.
Yeah, I think that article nailed it. The Panthers should have the opportunity to draft a franchise quarterback with the 6th overall pick in Malik Willis. So I think for the Panthers that. Listen, I wanted Matt Rule to coach the Giants after they fired Pat Shurmur. That Matt Rule was headed for New York to take the job, and then decided to take the Panthers job at the last minute because the guy that was the general manager at the time was some guy named Dave Gettleman, who was who the Giants were in the middle of their days of arrogance and ignorance. I'll never get over, never get over that. But fortunately, the Giants corrected their wrongs on both of those ends. Went with Shermer and Judge to Dable, and now from Gettleman to Shane. But yeah, I was dead wrong on Matt Rule from the beginning, and I don't think the Panthers are good enough to make the playoffs in the NFC. In spite of a very good defense, I will give them that. They do have a good defense.
All right, very, very interesting there. So, looks like, see here, he led the Panthers to a combined 10-23 record the last 2 seasons, and that doesn't sound good. So they'll definitely have to step it up there over in Charlotte way there.
Oh, and also, by the way, Ben McAdoo is his offensive coordinator, in case you're wondering.
Oh my Lord,
boy.
Ben McAdoo, wasn't he with the Giants?
Yes, his 2 years as offensive coordinator were pretty good. One year he led the Giants to the playoffs and 11 wins. The other, he got fired after week 13.
Mm-hmm. I knew there was some kind of connection between McAdoo and the Giants. I couldn't quite remember.
Yeah, I remember he was the Packers quarterback coach for 7 years before becoming the Giants offensive coordinator.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I see another name on these lists of head coaches that are on the hot seat. A guy who, of course, was a former quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. Now he's the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I'm talking about Frank Reich.
Yes. Yeah. So I wonder what the expectations should be. What if the expectations for the Indianapolis Colts within the organization are reflective of what the expectations should be when you look at how competitive the AFC is going to be, and you can make a serious case for 10, 11, 12 teams that have playoff caliber rosters, and only 7 of them are going to make it. So. But the AFC South is the soft spot in the conference, and I expect the Indianapolis Colts to win the division and make the playoffs, because Tennessee certainly got weaker because AJ Brown was a salary cap casualty. I like how they responded afterwards when they took the wide receiver out of Arkansas in the first round, but the Colts have an excellent offensive line. They have one of the best linebackers in the National Football League, and Darius Leonard calling the shots on defense, and they have a real one when it comes to their defense. But I think the big thing where the expectations should be raised is that they had a massive upgrade at quarterback, and I think Matt Ryan is going to be a rock star in Indianapolis. And but if the Colts can't win a playoff game with Matt Ryan as the quarterback, I think there's going to be some real questions here about if Frank Reich should stay longer as the coach of the Colts. So. But remember, if the Colts do win the division, they do get a home game on what's likely going to be wild card weekend. So it's a potential wild card teams like the Chargers, the Broncos, Cincinnati, Baltimore. So that could be a potential wild card matchup between the 4 seed and the 5 seed. So like Colts, Chargers, Colts, Bengals, Colts, Broncos, Colts, Chiefs. Saying that I don't think Kansas City is as good this year as they've been in years past, but the Chiefs could be a potential opponent for the Colts. Patrick Mahomes against Matt Ryan, that could be a really strong matchup. So yeah, but if the Colts do not make the playoffs this year, that's going to be a major disappointment for the entire organization, and that's probably going to lead to Frank Reich being fired, especially after how the Colts let their season slip away last year, losing at home to the Raiders in the last second, and then as 15.5-point favorites, losing to the bleeping Jaguars. So one of the biggest, most shocking upsets in recent NFL memory, and it knocked the Colts out of the playoffs.
I hear you. So, Natalia, what is the website that you have? What do they say about Frank Reich?
Okay, yeah, he is on the list. Let's see. It says Frank Reich meets his Indianapolis Colts playoff bound as the AFC South winner. The Indianapolis Colts are a well-run organization, but owner Jim Irsay is running out of patience. They may have had 5 major quarterbacking instability since the final years of the Andrew Luck era, but maybe, just maybe, the Colts have a guy who is solid and can start under center for them more than 1 year consecutively in Matt Ryan. He gives Frank Reich some leniency, but not a ton. By trading for Ryan with the Atlanta Falcons, Indianapolis should be a playoff team in the deep AFC and probably win the AFC South, with the Tennessee Titans expected to pull back. Though the Ryan deal takes pressure off Reich considerably, the Colts are too talented to not win the AFC South for the first time since 2014 this season. Otherwise, they need to get a head coach who can. It should be seen as playoffs or bust for the Reich to get another playoff year leading the Colts franchise.
Yeah, I think I Carson Wentz I thought was the guy last year because Frank Reich was so good with Carson Wentz last year. And I mean, in 2017, before he tore his ACL, now Wentz is just a guy who is not going to make the difference in Washington, and it was an all-time bad trade by the Colts that they gave up a first-round pick for. I mean, if Carson Wentz had 75% of the snaps, it would have been a second-round pick if it was less than that. So not only did Wentz play 75% of the snaps, the Colts did not make the playoffs. So the Eagles, so that enabled the Eagles to draft Jordan Davis and trade up to get him with that. I think it was the 18th pick that they traded up. So and that's how Roseman figured that out. But yeah, I mean, going from Jacoby Brissett 1 year, Phil Rivers. Remember, Phil Rivers almost won a playoff game in Buffalo. Think of how hard it is to win in the playoffs in Buffalo, and Phil Rivers almost did that, and then Carson Wentz was just a disaster. Now Matt Ryan's the pro's pro. I think he's gonna be a Hall of Famer someday. I think his name will be going to Canton someday. So but yeah, anything short of not making the playoffs, it means that Frank Reich's going to be out of a job and the Colts are going to be making a coaching change.
Yeah, because I think the last couple of years it's been competitive in that AFC South, basically just between the Colts and the Titans, because right now the Texans and the Jaguars have been kind of irrelevant for the last few years.
Yeah.
Another name that has come up on these lists here that I see here, a former coach of the year, Ron Rivera.
Yeah, I think Ron Rivera is in a similar boat to what Matt Rule is with Carolina. That the Commanders have been a revolving door at the quarterback position when you. For years that they decided on taking Dwayne Haskins in the 2019 draft, and that clearly did not work out. That Haskins only lasted 2 years with Washington before being run out of town by the disgraced Dan Snyder. But Washington, in theory, should be better this year with a healthy Chase Young and a Washington defense that is built on its pass rush and winning out the trenches. Now, they did get one thing right in extending Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin's a pro's pro, and I think he's worth every single penny of that 3-year contract that they handed out to him in earlier last week. So how is that going to pertain to Washington? Well, so it is clear to me that Washington is the third or fourth best team in the division, probably the third right now. If I had to choose between Washington and the Giants in 2022, I would pick Washington because I think they have more dudes on either side, and the Giants are still recovering from the Dave Gettleman era. But Ron Rivera hasn't won a playoff game since the 2015 NFC Championship game, and I have to imagine that if Wentz doesn't work out, Wentz is now just a guy, and he's just a game manager at this point, not the playmakers that are out there like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, I think it's really possible that if the Commanders don't improve, that it's probably going to be the end of the road for Ron Rivera, and Washington's going to be finding a new head coach somewhere in 2023.
All right, Natalie, you have Rivera on your list over there?
Not on this list, but I guess we could say in a nutshell we have some bonus names. But we do have a little bit more than 5. So I guess I can also add if anybody knows any names that we missed at the end of the show, you guys can leave it down in the comments.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I could. In the end, though, I could see Rivera too. Yeah, because that whole NFC East is kind of wacky. Pretty much, I think besides the Brian Dable, I don't think anybody honestly from the NFC East is safe. Because it's always either the weakest division or the strongest division. It's one of those divisions you can't really predict sometimes. I think at one point didn't somebody win with just an above 500 record?
In 2011, the Giants won 9 games in the regular season and went on to win the Super Bowl. So, but in 2020, Washington went 7-9. But made the playoffs.
Yeah, that was the year when it didn't seem like anybody really wanted to win that division.
Imagine
Daniel Jones. The most unpredictable division. I can make an argument for any one of them to win the division. In all honesty, except for maybe Washington.
I can't make the case for the Giants. This is going to be another year where it's going to be Dallas and Philly in the division.
And is it any wonder that there hasn't been a repeat champion in that division for the longest time?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. How about I saw this one good name. There could be an argument for or against him.
I think.
What about Pete Carroll?
I think they're the only division that's had a Super Bowl winner, I believe.
I think Natalie's video might have froze up a little bit. So I was just mentioning another name I see here, Pete Carroll.
Yeah, that could be an interesting name. I did not have that on my initial list, but yeah, I think Pete Carroll might be thinking retirement after this. So that I know John Schneider and Pete Carroll have been around for well over a decade, and they put together a championship winning roster that they kept around too long. So and which basically ended when they traded Russell Wilson to the Broncos in March. So I think the Seahawks are certainly on that limbo here. So, but I would have to imagine that it's going to be Drew Lock with Geno Smith starting at the quarterback position for Seattle this upcoming season. Most likely Drew Lock, because Geno Smith is terrible at football, but Drew Lock is just as bad, but not worse than Geno Smith. So, but I think with that as the canvas here, I think the Seahawks are definitely thinking of when they bring in the new GM, they're probably going to be bringing in the new head coach and the new franchise quarterback for 2023. Now, I've heard a lot of Baker Mayfield to the Seahawks buzz in recent days. I think that would make sense for Baker Mayfield if he wants to prove himself outside of a rotten situation in Cleveland, and then go over to Seattle and play there, to maybe have a change of scenery. So that does make sense, but I wonder if they're gonna walk out of the sunset together instead of them being fired, because Seattle's gonna be one of the worst teams in the NFC this upcoming season. So yeah, I think that's where everything is when you look at the Seattle Seahawks and what their division is like, with the Rams, the Cardinals, and the 49ers all potential playoff teams again in that NFC West.
Natalia, do you got Pete Carroll on that list?
Yeah, this was the one that I thought was going to be controversial, but I guess it's not. Let's see. So let's see what this article here says. Yeah, not only is Pete Carroll in the wrong side of 70, but the Seattle Seahawks are not going to be the least bit good this season for the future Hall of Fame head coach. Trading away former starting quarterback Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos will have disastrous consequences. With ownership in flux when it comes to Paul Allen's estate, Carroll is not for long with the Seahawks. Frankly, intern owner Jody Allen will probably let Carroll coach the Seahawks for as long as she owns the team. Carroll did help bring her late brother a Super Bowl championship back in 2013. However, another miserable year of Seahawks football could lead towards a complete teardown of the organization. Carroll may have some leverage in this situation, but this time is so not on his side. For the time being, the Seahawks are one of only a few franchises that feel totally directionless.
It says, but I think that the fact that the Seahawks basically don't have a quarterback is problem number one, and then
right,
and then I think the big mistake was sacrificing offensive line strength to acquire Jimmy Graham back in 2015, which I viewed that trade as the beginning of the downfall for that for that franchise. And so, but still, Russell Wilson put up some remarkable numbers in that 7 seasons, and he had 220 touchdown passes and 61 interceptions, and an overall passer rating over 100 in the 7 years without a great offensive line. So you can talk about Russell Wilson, and that's gonna be the centerpiece of my comments, of my commentary surrounding the Denver Broncos this upcoming season. So. So Russell Wilson's in a great spot in Denver. Seattle not so much, but they did get a lot of draft picks back for 2023 and beyond that they can use to start rebuilding. So the Seahawks are in a great spot to start rebuilding sooner rather than later. Will it be with a new GM and a new head coach? Probably, but. But yeah, Pete Carroll is someone who obviously preaches culture and brought about a winning culture in Seattle upon his arrival back in 2010. Of course, he was the head coach at Southern Cal for all those years when he had Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush on his roster, and he is one of the rare success stories from college to the NFL. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd probably see Pete Carroll maybe retiring after this year. So
Yeah, probably retiring more than being fired.
Right.
So that's why I didn't consider Pete Carroll.
Right. Maybe this name you might consider on the hot seat. Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona.
Yep, he is on my list too. And look, the Arizona Cardinals made a huge gamble and a huge risk in hiring Cliff Kingsbury as their head coach. Now, such that he could pair him up with Kyler Murray to be a head coach quarterback duo. And I thought the idea was solid. I mean, at first glance, you bring in that new head coach, you bring in a new quarterback together the same year. That usually yields a lot of good results. So, but because more than half of the championship-winning teams over the last 40 years came with a head coach and quarterback duo that both entered the franchise for the first time that same year. So with the right scheme and with the right plan in mind, and Steve Keim is a tremendous general manager for the Arizona Cardinals, and you could and it was evident because a lot of his assistants got interviews elsewhere to be general managers. You know, Adrian Wilson was high on the Giants list before they hired Joe Shane. So, but a lot of this is going to fall on Kyler Murray and some of Kyler Murray's commentary this offseason concerning the contract extension, potential contract extension, and him not taking no responsibility for the playoff loss, and the Cardinals starting off great each of 2020 and 2021 before falling out of it both years. In 2020, so they started 7-3 before losing 5 of the last 6 games to miss the playoffs, and then in 2021, the Cardinals started 7-0. Ex-Cardinal Rasul Douglas was picked off Kyler Murray at the end of that crazy game between the Packers and the Cardinals in Week 8. And the Cardinals had a limbo at that position the rest of the way. So and then of course they got throttled 34-11 by the LA Rams in the playoffs. So the Rams, the Cardinals could have used that playoff experience in 2020 to apply it to 2021. That it could have been a lot more competitive. So but in this retrospect, I think there's a real possibility that if Kyler Murray doesn't pan out, that's probably going to be the end of the road for Cliff Kingsbury, and they're going to bring in a new head coach in 2023. So there's going to be an immense amount of pressure on both of them because they're going to live or die together.
Natalie, do you have anything on Kingsbury?
That's an interesting one. He's not the last name on my list. But that could very well happen. There's this aside from the Seahawks, this division is pretty stacked. And while I do think the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs, they don't have as easy of a path as they used to have because the Saints are improving, and I think the Vikings are improving a little bit to some degree. So the Cardinals are going to have to hold them off in order for them to make the playoffs. But with DeAndre Hopkins missing the first 6 games, that's one offensive piece that's missing right there.
Yeah,
so if he can't play, that could hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I think that's a really that's an important point because Kyler Murray is much better when DeAndre Hopkins is in there, and with Hopkins missing the first 6 games because of 6-game suspension, that's not the way you want to go if you are if you're the Cardinals.
You got any more names left?
I've seen one name on a couple of these lists, although I'm not sure why. I mentioned this to Flynn before we went on the air. Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah. And I told Tim this is one I disagree with because this is going to lead into to the next topic that Tim had is I think that this season for the Browns is going to be a disaster because of the Deshaun Watson situation and Kevin Stefanski in 2020 he did lead the Browns to their first playoff victory in 26 years. Against Pittsburgh in that wacky 48-37 game, in the wild card round before almost beating Mahomes and the Chiefs at home. They were until the Bills last year, they were the closest team to knocking off Mahomes and the Chiefs. So they weren't the closest. Brady beat them in 2018, but in 2020 they came really close to knocking off the Chiefs at Arrowhead. So, but that's one where I disagree with Tim on.
Right. I guess Natalie Stefanski's not on your list.
No, he's actually not the last. I mean, he's not on the list, but I could potentially see him getting fired, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to get the benefit of the doubt, but we'll have to see.
Yeah,
I think this last name on my list is probably even worse. I mean, we'll see what that is. If you have any more names, then we'll keep going. But otherwise, there is one more name on here.
So what makes you believe, Tim, that Kevin Stefanski is going to get fired this year if the Browns aren't successful?
Well, I was just reading that list and I was like, I don't know how he would be on the hot seat this year because it seems like most of the attention is going to be on Deshaun Watson instead of Stefanski. I mean, I give Stefanski maybe 1 or 2 more years, but no, I mean, with everything that you just said, I really kind of disagree with them putting Stefanski on a hot seat list like this here. So let me see if I can figure out who Natalie's final coach is.
Well, technically, I mean, it's not my list per se. It's just
not your list.
It's just the article I found. Right. I think this last name is kind of controversial, though.
Would it be Josh McDaniels?
No.
Josh McDaniels just got hired, so why would he be on the hot seat after 1 year?
Well, according to this article here, it's a strange hire for the Raiders.
I mean, I disagree completely in real time with the hire, and he's not gonna be the guy that's gonna change the culture for the better with the Raiders. But
right,
I mean,
I was say this last name on this list here doesn't even really make an argument. But let's see what you guys think of this name, Brandon Staley.
No, I disagree. I disagree with that because the Chargers are going to be great. That Staley knows he has to improve the in-game management, but I disagree with that. The Chargers are going to be great. I can make a case the Chargers are going to be the third or fourth best team in the AFC. That's the expectation.
Yeah. I'm just gonna read what the article says, but it doesn't really make a point argument at all. Here it is. It just says Brandon Staley needs to guide the Los Angeles Chargers into the playoffs or else. And then it says, wait, how is Matt Rule not on the hottest seat in all of football? For the time being, one could certainly argue that. But what do you think is going to happen to Brandon Staley if the Los Angeles Chargers fail to qualify for the AFC playoffs again? He has arguably the best roster in football. Says, who cares if the Bolts play in the AFC West? Anything short of a playoff berth is unacceptable failure. The very last thing the Chargers will want is for Justin Herbert to be entering his 4th year with the franchise on his rookie deal. Nonetheless, without ever being to the postseason. Perceived Super Bowl windows are only open for so long. The instant the Chargers pay Herbert big money, that window may close. Stanley will thrust out of there if he cannot win big games in September. If the Chargers can fire the late Marty Stoutenheimer after
Marty Schottenheimer.
Yeah.
Oh, what a name that was.
Yeah, if the Chargers can fire the late Marty Schottenheimer after a 14-2 season, they can so axe Staley. I think that's a bad argument, though.
Wait a minute. Hold a second. Wasn't that the year that Schottenheimer went 14-2 with Kansas City?
With the Chargers.
I'm going to pan over to the article here. It says right here.
Right.
And you know who they replaced him with? Bleeping Norv Turner. He was a train wreck with the Chargers.
And this site I have is called fansided.com.
There's two more names that I see here. One, Dan Campbell in Detroit.
No.
Nah.
No.
The Lions had a terrible roster before he came in, and they actually played pretty hard for him last year. Given that they made a lot of seemingly non-competitive games pretty close.
And this name kind of gives me cause to pause. John Harbaugh in Baltimore.
No, they improved. They're the most improved team, I think. They're going to go from like last to first.
Yeah, that look on Flynn's face, that's the look I had when I read John Harbaugh.
How would John Harbaugh be on the hot seat? Like he's one of the 4 or 5 best coaches in the National Football League.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah,
that guy thinks Lamar Jackson's not the answer for the Ravens, and he thinks the Lamar Jackson contract extension talks are going to go all the way into the regular season. No, Lamar Jackson's contract is going to be extended before training camp. I'll tell you that right now. You can bet Lamar Jackson is not going to walk into that training facility on July 26th without a new contract. So and this situation, Lamar Jackson has the leverage because when he's on there, the Ravens are win a lot of games, and when he got hurt, that's when the Ravens' losing streak started.
So,
I mean, I vehemently disagree with that take.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I see here. So so we're going to say Flynn says that Lamar Jackson will get the contract extension before training camp. I say put it on the board.
Yeah, Eric DeCosta is too good of a general manager not to realize the risks of failure on that front.
Well, I mean, there are some coaches that we do agree on. We agree with McCarthy, and we agree with who else is there? Rivera, was it maybe? Or
I'll give you one more name that wasn't necessarily on the list, but a coach that might be one and done. I would say Buffy Smith of the Houston Texans.
Oh yeah,
that too. That was a terrible hire to begin with, and the Texans had to have him be the head coach because of all the pressure the NFL had from groups for not hiring enough minority head coaches. So pretty much the Texans were forced into hiring Lovie Smith because they are a clueless, rudderless, pathetic disaster of a franchise right now.
Yeah,
and
agree.
And I think the Texans are going to have the number 1 pick in the draft next year. It's going to be I have to imagine Atlanta, Houston, or Seattle. I think those are going to be the 3 teams jockeying for the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft next season.
Yeah. And that's a game that I want to plan on going to see this coming season, December 11th. The I-45 showdown between the Texans and the Cowboys. That will be at AT&T Stadium. So,
is that a 1:00 game? That should be a 1 p.m. game, right?
It is. It's a 1 p.m. Eastern game, and that's the game that is on my on my thing to see because, of course, last year I attended the Week 3 Cowboys Monday night game against the Eagles, and of course the Cowboys just stomped all over those guys. So hopefully this year I'll go see my second Cowboys game in my lifetime. So, well, enough about the coaches. We have to talk about one player in particular that we brought up earlier, Deshaun Watson. 20 of the 24 counts have been settled. They've been settled. There's 4 left, but the question is, how should the NFL punish Deshaun Watson? I've heard some people say maybe 6 or maybe 7 games. Some people say maybe suspend him for a whole year. Flynn, what say you?
I think the trend, the trend the last week or so of the Deshaun Watson front has been the one that Deshaun Watson gets suspended indefinitely, and that's the take I had on my Hooked on Sports podcast 3 weeks ago, and that's the take I still have now. Now, let's also remember this too. How did the Cleveland Browns work around the Deshaun Watson contract with his agent and the owners? The Deshaun Watson's base salary this year is going to be the league minimum of $1 million because they anticipate the suspension. The agent figured that the suspension was going to happen. Now, what about in 2023? What is his salary going to be in 2023? Well, his salary is going to be $46 million, which is a $45 million jump from 2022 to 2023. So for a league that seems to be more concerned about its money, and giving the owners the money. The idea I've been hearing is that the Deshaun Watson suspension will start next year, so that immediately after the end of the of the 2022 NFL season, the NFL would announce that Deshaun Watson is suspended indefinitely. Those are some of the things that I'm hearing. With that. Now, that's something that I think that will happen. But should happen if the NFL is concerned about public relations, and the NFL certainly has a rough track record of handling domestic violence situations. When you think of Ray Rice in 2014, when you think of Ben Roethlisberger in 2010, when you think of Kareem Hunt, a guy that had a domestic violence issue and was subsequently suspended. So this is going to be and you could look at Ben Roethlisberger, who at the time was a 2-time winning Super Bowl quarterback when he got suspended in 2010. So, Deshaun Watson, with the money he's making, this is the most high-profile domestic violence situation that Roger Goodell has attended to in his 17th season as the commissioner of the NFL. So, what is the NFL going to value here? Is it going to value public relations, or is it going to value the money like it's had the last 15 years? Conventional wisdom says that the first situation I provided, that is the suspension will be announced the day after the regular season's over, before 2023, or does the NFL want to improve its public image and have Deshaun Watson suspended for the 2022 season? That's going to be that's a really hard choice the NFL wants to make, because another reason why I could see why the NFL would wait till 2023 It's because of how Roger Goodell is handling the situation with Dan Snyder in Washington. Now we know how awfully run that organization is, and so much so that the U.S. Congress had to step in and intervene in this. So, and Roger Goodell has made some baffling points, so that should concern the public, and because the commissioner, because the owners are part of this too, when that with the owners and the players, and it has to be it has to take two to tango for these things to happen. When you look at the health and safety stuff that kicked in the last 2 years, like the bargaining agreement. But Goodell's position as commissioner can only go so far. So, because who picks the commissioner? Who elects the commissioner? The owners do. And you see that in basketball, you see that in baseball, you see that in like every single league that's out there, where the people elect the commissioner. So if this was a situation for our fantasy football league, where the tally is the commissioner, we would have a vote and declare John Natale the commissioner of the National Football League of our fantasy football league through election. So the owners are really the ones that are calling the shots here on this. So. But part of me says that Deshaun Watson will get suspended without pay beginning in 2023, costing him at least $45 billion compared to 2022, where his suspension where he'd lose just $1 million. This is going to be an all money thing when it comes to the NFL issuing the suspension of Deshaun Watson. Watson will be suspended. There's no question about that. There is absolutely no question. If Deshaun Watson was not suspended at all, there would be huge calls to boycott the National Football League, and those points would be fair. So there's no question about that. I think the NFL is going to value the money again over the public relations.
Natalie, your thoughts on the Watson situation?
Yeah, this whole thing is it's like a mess. I mean, like no matter what happens, the Texans are screwed. They don't really have much of a team. I mean, I think if anything, he should just take the suspension right away. Just get it over with. Focus on 2023. They're not going anywhere no matter what.
Right.
I mean, I could maybe see him getting suspended. I would say half a season, maybe. I mean, if a plea deal was allowed, I would suggest him take a plea, get it over with, move on, because it's already gone on long enough. Everybody's like monkeying around and everything. This thing should have been settled weeks and months ago. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes,
this investigation should not take months.
No. I mean, this is crazy. If it's going to take months, then I guess they're just looking more into it than they really should be.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just wait and see what happens on that.
And the fact that he settled with 20 of the 24 is probably the biggest admission of guilt in this entire process.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I would definitely agree with that. I would definitely agree. Well, anyway, enough with the Deshaun Watson situation, but I do have a very interesting graphic here that I want to present to you all. The top 10 NFL rivalries and the records with the teams that are shown here. Let's see here. Let me see if I can get that graphic up here. Like that. Thing is kind of running a little slow, but just a little something interesting that I thought you might like here. Starting right here, of course, the longest rivalry in history, the Bears and the Packers. You see the Packers with a 102 wins to the Bears 94. Ravens and Steelers, that's always been a good one. The Steelers have a 6-game advantage over the Ravens. The rivalry I grew up on, of course, back then it was the Cowboys and the Redskins. Now it's the Cowboys and the Commanders. Cowboys 75-45. Chiefs and Raiders, that goes all the way back to the old AFL days.
1960.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Chiefs have a 68-53 advantage there. The Niners and Rams, division rivalry there. Rams, Niners with a 74-67 advantage. Your Giants and Eagles.
Yeah.
They have a pretty good rivalry, and look at how close that is. Just two games.
Yeah, and recently the Eagles took over. I mean, for the series lead for the first time ever in the last couple of seasons.
Right. Then you have the Battle of the Buckeye State. The Bengals and the Browns. Bengals up 51-46 on that one. The Falcons and the Saints. Big rivalry in the NFC South. And that's just
close.
One game. Falcons 53 wins, Saints 52 wins in that historic rivalry.
Yeah. I remember the Saints and Falcons used to play in the NFC West with the Rams and the 49ers.
Yeah, that was way before the realignment took place back in the 90s.
The Falcons and Saints were in the NFC West until 2002 when they were sent to the NFC South.
Right.
How in the heck is Atlanta in the West? That's crazy.
But also think about the original, one of the original plans for the NFL when the AFL and NFL remerged in 1970, and the plan that was picked was the one that had the Cowboys in the NFC East and the Falcons and Saints in the West. Which was quite interesting, but it was something the Cowboys wanted because they knew that they're having games against the Giants and the Eagles, and then at the time the Redskins would garner the biggest ratings, and sure enough, the Cowboys have big division rivalry still with all three of those teams.
Yeah, very interesting there. Yeah, because I remember way back when it was the Cowboys, the Giants, the Eagles, the Redskins, and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
That was that NFC East way back then when there was only 3 divisions per conference. Well, it kind of shows you how old I am. Because I remember that. I remember that. Back when the Cardinals were playing in St. Louis. And
I remember the Cardinals started in Chicago about in 1920.
Yeah, the Chicago Cardinals. That's right. That's right. And you have this rivalry here, the Patriots and the Jets, with the Patriots, of course, having a significant advantage with 69 victories over the Jets' 53 victories. But the one at the bottom here... I can't help but laugh at the very bottom one there. The Lions have 37, and any other team with winning records have 55 victories.
I think what that meant to say is that the Lions have 37 winning seasons in their history, and then 55 not so much.
Yeah. I just saw this graphic about a week or so ago, and I thought I'd share it with everyone here watching the show, and kind of interesting there. So, of course, you love the Cowboys and Packers. I love when you watch the Ravens and Steelers, Cowboys, Commanders. Now, Cowboys and Commanders, they're not as heated of a rivalry as it used to be, but still a rivalry nonetheless. Of course, I guess
More
right
so
now
Cowboys and Eagles nowadays.
Yes, definitely. Especially since the '89 season.
Mm-hmm.
89 season when it was Jimmy Johnson's first year with the Cowboys, Jerry Jones' first year as the owner, and they had that they had a some kind of conspiracy to try to deliberately injure Troy Aikman, the quarterback for the Cowboys, and then when they had the game in Philadelphia in the snow and the fans just throwing snowballs at Jimmy Johnson, that was the start of that big rivalry right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess those are the top 10 rivalries and the all-time records with them. So I guess before we close things up for tonight's edition of Fantasy Football Fever, of course, you know, July 4th. Before we go, I want to do a quick over-under. Tomorrow is 4th of July, which means that the famous Joey Chestnut will be competing again. And let me get to that page here. Last year, he won the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, chowing down 76 hot dogs and buns, hot dogs and buns together, 76 in 10 minutes. So, what about tomorrow? Y'all take the over or the under?
So what is the official over? Is it 76?
I'm not sure exactly the over under.
It's because we can't do an over under without you giving us a number.
Yeah. Let me see here. Let me look if we have a betting odds and predictions. Oh yeah, this article here. Let me look that up. That was just this article was posted 10 hours ago. It's on fansided.com where Tally found that list of coaches on the hot seat here. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. Okay, the over-under for Chestnut is 74.5.
Okay, so
He did 76 last year. So it's 74.5. That's the over-under.
I'm going to take the under. I'm going to say 72.
72, huh?
I think he goes over again. I think that there's going to be. I think he's going to do more than 74. 74 and a half again this year. I just know that he's just gotten better and better as time goes along in that competition. So
Right.
I'm going to take the over.
Well, Tim, you're the tiebreaker.
I am going to take the over, but not by much. I mean, I don't know if he'll go past 76, but I'm sure he can go more than 74. So I'm taking the over just a little bit.
Okay.
So we'll just have to see what happens. Of course, he'll not only be the only one eating out of hot dogs. Sure, everybody's going to be grilling and barbecuing, and already before the show, I stepped outside and already I can hear fireworks shooting off. All them black cats going off. So they don't want to wait until tomorrow.
Yeah.
A lot of people are doing it tonight because people have to go into work on Tuesday. So they're having like big celebrations today.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, fireworks are illegal where I live.
I know that they're illegal here, but you know they're gonna keep shooting them because because they won't enforce it. They won't enforce the law.
All right. Well, all right. We'll just have to see. I'll have to check the TV listings to watch the hot dog eating competition.
Yeah, I know it comes on. It's not ESPN this time for some reason because it's some other sporting event.
I think it's 11 a.m. on ABC.
Oh, ABC. I didn't notice that on my TV listings.
I was thinking maybe either ABC or maybe ESPN Plus or.
that's what I saw. I could be mistaken.
I'm gonna check my TV listings again. Well, you said 11. That'd be 8 o'clock where I live. So let me see. I'm gonna be at work regardless, so I'm gonna be missing it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna check my listings for 8 a.m. No, 8 a.m. for me is Good Morning America.
Right.
No, nothing for ABC on my TV listings.
I thought I saw some difference, but I might have misread it, but I digress.
Yeah, ESPN's going to show it, but I think it's going to be like it had already aired.
Like a tape delay.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I think ESPN has tennis or something weird.
Oh yeah. Because Wimbledon's going on.
Yeah, Wimbledon. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's on one of those sub channels. It's like ES something. I forgot what it was called though.
Yeah.
All right, so Flynn and I are taking the over, and Natalie's taking the under. We'll just see what happens. So, I guess with that, we will put a wrap on this edition of Fantasy Football Fever. Our next show, I would like to schedule it for this coming Thursday night, and I'd like to do fantasy ratings. Let's do some fantasy ratings here. We'll take a look at how the NFL players are ranked according to fantasy statistics, and we'll take a look at that. So,
and before we go, I got the pull up for the Nathan's Hot Dog contest. The network's called ESW.
It's probably online. Somewhere.
Yeah, 9 a.m. where I live, so it'll be noon Eastern time.
All right.
Noon Eastern, 11 Central. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Let me see what that's called exactly. I don't have that on my cable package.
It's probably like
ESPN News. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So if you guys have ESPN News, then you'll be able to watch it.
All right. Gotcha.
Now y'all know out there. Y'all want to watch Joey Chestnut? Tune on ESPN News at noon Eastern tomorrow. So
yeah. Otherwise, it'll be rebroadcasted on ESPN later on.
Right. So, I guess with that, we'll go ahead and wrap this show up here. Great show, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully, we'll get together again this coming Thursday night. Y'all be sure to click on one of those links down there to listen to John Flynn with Hooked on Sports.
Yeah, 2 episodes. The 2 episodes coming out this week, so I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah, a lot of sports information right there. So y'all clicked on there to subscribe. Click those links, and you'll listen to John Flynn.
Yeah.
John Natale, always have the good to hear, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Natale, we'll talk about drafting order for our league probably a little bit down the road. So
yeah, probably like in August, I guess.
I mean, what I would do is I would just randomize. I have the site that randomizes the selections 90 minutes before the draft. So that's the setting I do when I do my leagues.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that when we get there. So
yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a happy and safe 4th of July holiday for John Flynn and John Natale. I'm Tim McClellan. Happy 4th. Happy birthday, America. Thanks for watching, you guys. God bless you. And as always, be a good sport. Yeah.